IIF's grassroots evidence has always, given us this learning that exclusion often harms before harm is visible, is tangible, is measurable, right? So that is where we begin, right? So through this panel discussion, we'll attempt to address if exclusion is increasingly preemptive and invisible, and where should accountability sit in data, design, deployment, or governance, right? So here we have 3 segments. First segment, we want to understand whether and where exclusion can potentially enter the AI DPI stack, right? Segment 2 will look at how AI can be governed as public infrastructure. And third segment will be focusing on how can we ensure inclusion by design. So that means like how do we locate gender in design? How do we build trust by design? And what is industry's responsibility, which houses the public infrastructure in today's AI ecosystem? So in the segment 1, we start with Osama. Osama, I'll be asking questions from here. So this will be easier for me with my iPad. Yes, little bit. So Osama, the first question to you is from villages and community centers. Where exactly are people falling out of AI-enabled public systems today? And what is your understanding of what a people-centric DPI can look like?
Arpita is having some grudge with me, I guess. I always speak at the end because I make my notes during the session. So, but anyway, so I would like to just simply, do I have 4 minutes? 4 minutes, okay. So, I want to take all of you to, away from the hype. AI and AI can change the world or digital can change the world and all that, because I have seen all this in the last 30 years, how .com came and went and how mobile came and created hype and didn't really put up to, the expectation of the people. It's very simple. The masses live in faraway places. Simple. The people who want to serve, whether Google wants to serve, technology wants to serve, anybody wants to serve, they all live far away. Means they are not equipped with any kind of big infrastructure. Neither it's road nor water or anything, right? Now digital is saying that I want to become your infrastructure. Digital is saying I want to become your infrastructure so that everybody can reach you. You means the mass who live away. Who is saying this? The corporates are saying this. The government is saying this, right? So number one is that what is this digital? That means you have to be replaceable by road, off the road, water, electricity, housing and everything. And all this has to become data. And all this has to become a serving infrastructure. That means the technology or the data or the pipeline or the bandwidth has to be available to the people, so that your data and service can go. That's what the public infrastructure is. Public infrastructure, what is public infrastructure? I get out of my house, the bus stand is right there, or the metro is right there, or electricity is right there, right? Water is in the pipe. But if you say that public infrastructure is 5 kilometers away, 10 kilometers away, and only available when you buy a 10,000 rupees infrastructure device, then only you can access that public infrastructure, then it is unaffordable, inaccessible, not cheap, and especially to those people who live far away. So what I feel is that we have reached to a point where that information, which is the most powerful thing, that what is information? That means if I am a ration seeker, my authentication of my biometric should be easy, even if it is required. I should not pay 100 rupees to get authenticated, then get my rice and lentils and then go home, right? That should not be the situation, but that is how it is now at the moment. So digital infrastructure has to be available at the doorsteps. The question to me is that, is the public digital infrastructure available to the doorsteps like a post office or a thing? No, it is not available. It says that it is available on the internet, which is available 5 kilometers away, which is available at a cost, which is available in the language that I don't know, which is available after filling 1 hour of form in the language that I don't know. That is the problem with any infrastructure, especially the digital infrastructure. So when AI is coming here, AI is actually saying that we will simplify all this. How will you simplify? I have no idea how you will simplify unless you have the real data, trustable data, you know. And every AI system is now extracting the data of the people rather than extracting the data that has to serve to the people. So data of the people or data for the people? What do you want? So these are the questions that I'm posing, and that is what at DEF we work with. We are saying that digital public infrastructure has to be affordable, available, and in a format that people can consume, right? If AI can help, fair enough. If AI cannot help, thank you very much, we don't need AI. It's very, very simple. And I feel that AI is based on raw data, right? As much as data, and the AI's job is believable. It has to be trustable. If it is not trustable, then it is not good, right? And it should serve people, not use people to serve themselves. I think most of the time when you see that the technology or anything is being pushed by the corporates and government or anybody, make sure that it is going to serve them by you and not that they are going to serve you first. And that's where I think people like Nico and other people are talking about safety, ethics, and all that is very, very important. And therefore, we need to discuss how we build the digital infrastructure with the help of AI, must know that it should be available at the doorstep of the people, especially in a country like India, who are unconnected, where 65% people who are not meaningfully connected should be at the subject of it. I can come back if there is more time in the second round.
Yes. I mean, I didn't have grudge, but I think I wanted to set this context for the larger conversation where key stakeholders from different sectors will now respond also from their vantage point on how they approach the questions of safety, trust, security, responsibility, because these are the words being used today in abundance. We are using them across sectors. But which are those frameworks that define these words is very important. I think that is where I think our session will focus on. So here I think I'll bring in Nicholas. From a global perspective, global governance perspective, most AI safety debates focus on frontier risks. And what are those slow harms of AI infrastructure for welfare and governance systems? Or like if I have to paraphrase that question, what governance mechanisms exist today that can actually stop these invisible harmful systems before deployment?
There you go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Arpita. It's always a pleasure to be back in Delhi. Some of you may not know that I started my journey in digital governance from Delhi in 2009. And I had the pleasure of collaborating with Osama and getting to know about DEF. And one of the earliest player in that conversation, so a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience to provide perspective. And I think I agree with most of the things that Osama has been painting as a context. I'm going to be built upon it. I will try and also hopefully provide a bit of constructive and useful contrast. To your question, and then I'll move beyond your question. I'm going to try and keep it very quick and structured. So the slow harms are the same that we have seen across the move towards a digital society, the move towards an algorithmic society with higher speed and scale. Is algorithmic discrimination new? No, it's not. Access to credit, access to healthcare, access to education, all of that mediated by algorithms is not a new problem. It's just intensifying with speed and scale of development of advanced algorithms. So the questions of who gets access and not access, under which conditions, which accountability, which redress mechanisms is gaining in intensity, but it's not new. What I think is new is the move, massive move, of the algorithmic society that we are building from a socio-technical black box, meaning it's a black box for people on the fringes, people at the base of the so-called power pyramid. But those at the top of the so-called power pyramid used to understand it well. Rule-based algorithms. We are now moving in a society of machine learning black box where the depths of the neural networks with trillions of parameters, this upscaling of compute and data into a token society with deep black boxes has rendered these boxes black for even those who designed those. Neither Joshua Bengio, nor Geoffrey Hinton, nor Yann Lequin, the three awardees from Alan Turing Award for advancing deep neural nets into a society, can tell you today that they understand how the system operates. So we are building a civilization on top of black boxes, which are gaining in power and strength and influence in capital in a way that those who design them do not understand well. And those who are engineering those systems into solutions are claiming, not me, they are claiming that they're advancing towards super intelligent systems. And so my main fear in terms of the slow harm moving into fast harm is that they may not want AI, Osama, those at the fringes, because AI does not serve them. But we're unfortunately going to reach a point where whether you like it or not, AI will have you. And there won't be much of an alternative. And because of machine learning, either either you're at the table or you're on the menu. And the alternative is going to be, oh, I don't want to be on the menu. Yeah, okay, but then you're moving deeper on the fringes of society. I remember, I don't know what's the case in India, but when the smartphone became popular, meaning affordable, accessible, used, and popular in my country, there was this debate of, oh, if you don't need a phone, you can choose not to have a phone. Yes, there's freedom. Where is that freedom? No phone, no work. No phone, no labor. The same is likely going to happen with those advanced AI systems. Oh, you don't need to have ChatGPT. Do you get the pattern I'm going at there? And so those who are in a situation to refuse it, either because of political resources that they want to mobilize against that AI that they don't want, either in a national project with a sovereign push, or because their community are saying no to the deal, no to the social contracts being pushed on them, or not, the price to pay to remain out is going to get super high, because those who have access to super intelligent or very capable intelligent systems to plan, reason, and create value in the service economy. India is a service economy. So those who are creating value in that economy are going to get too much of the pie. And so what I'm worried about is that really now is not the time to be left behind and left out, but the price to pay to be in, and the value system we have to trade in and abandon, if not sacrifice. The deal to me is looking as a very bad deal for the values and the hopes and the dreams that my grandmother and my grandfather have given to me when I grew up.
Thank you, Nicholas. I think it almost feels like a catch-22 situation because absolutely right that, see, when we talk about safety, trust, security, for a citizen, an ordinary citizen who is giving away their data, they have no idea where the data is going, for what purpose it is being used, where is it being stored, will it be used for their social welfare or for commercial interests. We all know as citizens sitting in this room that even the elite classes are unable to grasp what's happening in the AI ecosystem as citizens. And then we're talking about scores of masses of citizens who are deprived of lot of resources in India, in Global South, globally. So it is a catch-22 situation because for AI to thrive, we need algorithms. For algorithms to thrive, we need data sets and data sets from communities. So the question is, how do we ensure a safe AI, a secure, trustable AI, where communities are able to share their data, not give their data. It's not extractive by nature, but is more co-created, co-developed. That we ensure that citizens have autonomy and agency in the ecosystem rather just being passive recipients chasing what's happening. This otherwise feels like a forced digital transition that we are going through. And here I think I will bring Paula on the question of ethical AI. So ethical AI, Paula, these principles do exist, right? But why do they fail to protect communities in practice? Where is the implementation gap? And how do you see that? Because you do have a network of organizations who are in the global south, and you have also authored a report where you have in detail looked at how civil society organizations who are working with communities are faring in this ecosystem. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Arpita. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you. And on behalf of Globetics, it's not. Are you listening to me?
Yes,
Yeah.
louder.
Well, I was just thanking the Data Empowerment Foundation for inviting us. For Globetics, it's really an honor to co-organize this session because this topic is really timely. I am Peruvian, so I'm trying to bring the voice also from the global south here. In particular, I feel very welcomed by India. So thanks so much to the host and I do believe that this AI Global Summit will and has all the potential to bring a difference because we've been working on, Bletchley Park safety, in Seoul as well, last year in France on action, and this year on impact. So that's where we are, the impact, whether it is bringing impact or not, are we leaving behind? So this conversation is timely. Thanks so much. And as I said, I'm Peruvian, so I'd like to share with you a story that happened in 2019. In Peru, a rural woman was denied her government subsidy for food as a biometric authentication system didn't recognize her fingerprints. But what happened there? What we don't know is that this woman had been working for decades in agriculture, and that's why the digital footprint had worn down. And Peru, by that time, in 2019, it had a data protection law. We have a very big rhetoric on inclusion. And by that time, Peru had also signed the AI principles by the OECD. So ethics were there, right? But what failed? What happened? Why this woman was left behind? So what failed here in the system, in my opinion, is that ethics were not enforceable. What's happening there? And for the past decade, we've seen huge number of frameworks, and I myself work helping with implementation of the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI. But then where's the gap, Arpita, with the implementation gap, as you said? And first of all, we need to recognize that all of these charters on ethics, the ROMCO, even big technology companies have published charters on ethics, right? But all these are non-binding. They're no mandatory. So what happens when this is not complied? In fact, nothing, unfortunately. So I would say this is one of our biggest failures, I would say, where it's weak, right? Let's take the case of the Dutch childcare benefits scandal. Maybe you've heard about it. Some years ago, the Dutch authority used an algorithm to identify or flag fraud risk to give some subsidies. And because this model was embedded with some discriminatory assumptions, so the data was not completely diverse and quality up-to-date, actually it recognized and falsely put some families as of fraud risk, leaving thousands of families, mainly from migrant backgrounds, aside. So once again, that's where we're failing. And in DPI context, this gap becomes bigger, because when there is one ethical failure, this becomes systemic. So DPI, for me, it's a wonderful opportunity to really start bringing people that were usually left behind. But if we are not putting ethics into practice operationalizing it, then we're failing. Another point that I would like to touch here is power, because, and you mentioned it briefly when you introduced me. When we see power asymmetries, and that's our reality, those power asymmetries are at the moment shaping who builds the models, who sets the defaults, who benefits from this, and whose data we're using. I was remember yesterday very proudly that in Latin America we have already launched LATAM GPT, which is a model that was made with our own languages and our history. We have so many indigenous communities. This is a model that is still, let's say, progressing because it has a lot to improve, but it's at least one big step to bring our own culture and heritage into the digital world. Because what Nicolas was saying is true. Like, we really need to come to this digital era with our values and with who we are, right? So if we want to have these DPI and AI solutions more ethical and really avoiding mass exclusion, we really need to work with communities and bring them since the very beginning, since the very design. And for governments, do we have government representative here? Can you raise your hand? Wonderful, yes. So this is a call for you. So this building is indeed, and this is a call for them to do participatory processes, right? Let's work with citizens and communities since the beginning. And now that you mentioned it, Arpita, this is the publication that I did. It's called Pathways to Inclusion, Advancing the Role in Civil Society in AI Governance. Thank you, Nicolas. And in this document, I discussed with civil society from all over the world. Thank you, Nicolas. That's fine, we can just put it here. What's happening with civil society from the global majority? How are they participating in AI governance? And in particular, there are three main barriers that are preventing civil society for meaningful and impactful participation. What are those? First, unfortunately, we go on resources, funding. We need more funding for civil society and academics to do more research to bring voices from the global south. Second, and this is interesting, even though there are networks working on, there is a lack of, coordination and coherence, because sometimes there are only a few that are invited to some big meetings. So how do we do to bring all the voices, right? So we need to start working on more cohesive and cooperation within us. And the third one is knowledge. Technical knowledge on artificial intelligence. And well, as Nicolas said, even the fathers of AI are still understanding how these black boxes work. Imagine civil society organizations, right? But we are the ones that bring the voices of the one most impacted by artificial intelligence. So we need to have that voices in the table. Thank you so much, Arpita, and I hope this is just some food for thought, not for you to be negative and leave this room in a negative way, but we really cannot afford not to be optimistic. So let's think that, yes, technology is here to help, to improve our societies, but if we want to bridge the gap, we really need to start participating. Every organization that you are, civil society, private sector, academia, we have a role to play here, and it's just a matter of let's start talking to each other, and I think this meeting is a good starting point. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. That was very energizing talk. So here I think 2 points that I think Paola mentioned here, the takeaways are ethics without community in the loop will only be a procedural compliance, right? And safety without public accountability can become a technocratic control. Now, these are the key takeaways, right? And here I think when we talk about community in the loop, the first problem, as Paola highlighted, is that even civil society organizations do not have a seat at the table for AI governance conversations. So this is what I think DF also keeps always reiterating and always tries to occupy places where we can take our community voices through storytelling. So we should acknowledge that together as all stakeholders, that we should have more CSOs in the room. Then CSOs can bring communities in the room. There are so many gates like different stages at which there are roadblocks, and we have to break them all, maybe step by step sometimes, and maybe all of it, like question them more critically, and redesign our ways of building frameworks, definitions, etc. So here, when we talk about inclusion by design, we come to the segment 3, where we will focus a little bit on the question of gender in AI, right? And here, Dr. Bhavani plays a very important role. Like Women for Ethical AI South Asia chapter has been instrumental since last 1 year. She has her report today, which we are very honored to launch from our platform, and you can have a look at the report after the session. They are the network, which I am also part of, is raising lot of important questions on how automated AI audits, or creation of data sets, how they are creating lot of critical concerns for women in healthcare, in hiring process. And then of course, like if you go deeper, 70% of India is rural. We have to look at women as a heterogeneous community, women with different marginalities, transgender women, self-identified women. There are people from different marginalized genders. What are their experiences with the current AI ecosystem? That conversation also always have to be centered in our discussions. So here I invite Dr. Bhavani with a question. In AI-enabled public systems, where does gender exclusion hide, especially when systems claim neutrality? Please.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here for this discussion. The thing is that if you listen to the phrasing of her question, this is where does gender, where does bias hide when systems claim to be neutral? In all honesty, I don't think a system can ever claim to be neutral. Right, because I mean, this is thanks to my technical colleagues. They said that it requires some 13 billion parameters to train large language models. That kind of data we do not even have for the kind of people who are left out. So there's no way that any system can actually claim this neutrality. So obviously, then the biases hide all over the place. And I think we have plenty of now well-known examples, especially in healthcare. Like she was saying, this, medical systems, they do use male data to create for their pharmaceutical needs, and this is all established, and this is still in countries where the data sets have actually been used to train the algorithms, let alone countries like us where we haven't used, and therefore it's not possible that it is not neutral. So it is definitely biased, and these biases are there, but also human beings are biased. So I'm just going a little bit off topic over here, but I just can't help it. I tend to sometimes give the opposite argument just because it is there in front of me. We've come through civilization. I mean, we've just been through colonialism. We've been through feudalism. We've been facing biases all our life, all the time. The bank manager who's sitting over there is more likely not to give you a loan because you're a woman than an AI algorithm over there, right or wrong? Right? You can't say technology has failed its promise. It has done its bit. And technology at the end of the day is only an amplifier. It is going to amplify a good story or a bad story. Technology in itself is biased because of the biases we bring to it. This is what I feel. And therefore the question of context, the question of values, it becomes like super critical. And I don't think as human beings we're going to shape up in such a dramatic way that suddenly we're all realized beings and we're going to throw biases out of the window and we're going to have this purely egalitarian community. I mean, I don't think that is going to happen in my lifetime. If it happens, well and good, but yeah. One of us has to be Mahavataar Vishnu for that to happen, if you ask me. That's a joke that not everyone will understand, but forgive me for that. Yeah, but I think a lot of the topics that were put out by the different speakers, whether it's in terms of who owns the data is owned or the data is shared, who co-creates the services that AI provides, the possibility to also manipulate or use the AI as not to be its master, but it should be able to serve you. These are all very important concepts. I think all the critical concepts have been brought up by the speakers already, and I think these are the most important ways to address the biases that would come out, that we can actually have an eye about it. But in terms of the masses, if you ask the masses, because I know you work with the masses and I work with the masses, they're mostly not even aware of it. Their lives have been completely based on biases of others. They may not even recognize a bias and they won't even know how the bias affects them. It's those of us who have seen those patterns and are concerned about the patterns that are making that much of a noise about it. And I think God, I think I've gone a little bit off topic. But I think the most important things is that when you're talking about these large systems, it is important to have data sovereignty. And I think Dr. Krishnashree she's right here. She is talking on the 20th, and she's publishing a white paper, especially on the South Asian context on data sovereignty. This becomes very critical for us because it's different. Also, the way we say, how do we define poverty? How do we define a lot of these things that are intangible, that do not have definite and finite values? These are all critical considerations that are very contextual to us, and therefore data sovereignty is a very important conversation when we talk about designing systems that are somewhat neutral. And I still believe that it can never be totally neutral, but at least it'll be relevant to us. I think that would be a better way to say than calling it neutral. The other thing that I would say is that there is so much of the population that we work with that is in the informal sector, and data never ever gets reflected into our system. So how are we ever going to consider neutrality and biases and those conversations when we don't even know, and that part of the population is actually invisible? So I think I'm leaving with more questions than answers over here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, like just summarizing all these conversations in the context of our larger conversation about DPI, right? Digital public infrastructure to build a citizen-centric, community-centric, people-centric DPI. What are the steps that we should not follow to repeat the mistakes that are already at design level operating in today's ecosystem? Here, the most important voice, I think, in this panel is of a technologist. And we have Ram here from Google. And here, Ram, the question to you is, what does responsible and trustworthy AI mean from your vantage point when systems affect access to welfare, identity, or services, and all the other discussions that panelists have been talking about? Please.
Cool. Thank you, Arpita. I don't think I'm the most important person here, just given what I heard from the amazing panelists, but super excited to be here. And thank you also for our collaboration on capacity building workshops. You've been a great part of that. I thought maybe I'll take a slightly different pivot for a second, just to give you maybe how we build products, and maybe that'll be helpful. Maybe everybody is aware, but I've done this for the last 25 years, last 5 years at Google, where most of the time we're thinking about products in a way of, can we, obviously it's a commercial sense, so we're always thinking about, can we get broad distribution? But if we leave the commercial sense for 1 second, that broad distribution is all about inclusivity, right? And keeping it very contextual in India, that means that, can we have a large language presence? Can we make sure that, people can derive value in their own language? So for example, Gemini and NotebookLM and AI overviews are in multiple Indian languages, right? That's just one example of kind of reach. The second would be an example of, how do we make sure that beyond our AI principles that we have in testing and making sure the algorithmic, transparency is there, how do we make sure that the civil societies can actually give us that stamp of approval, right? So one simple example is we partner with Center for Responsible AI with IIT Madras, where they give us that kind of feedback to say that here are the feedback loops you should consider as you're building for sort of Hindi language, right? So again, We need this input. Without this input, there's no way we can build products that are loved, products that are safe, that are inclusive, right? That's just an example. And there are examples beyond that, right? For example, if you want to make sure that, hey, we've built a basic platform for education. We've recently launched, Gemini going to help you with JEE prep, right? Again, that's a big deal because what we're saying is if you don't have access to your tutor, if you have a shared device, please use Gemini to at least make sure that you can start prepping for, JEE. You don't need to have, a fancy, tutor and, expensive equipment to get there. But to even get there, we worked very, very closely with institutions like Wadhwani AI to make sure that they can give us that grassroots feedback on what does it mean to actually build for education. So the point of my story is really to say that we cannot do this without, what the esteemed panel was talking about earlier. Like, we need to be one part of this entire kind of ecosystem. We're very, very excited to, learn from the ecosystem, build for everyone, make sure that it's inclusive. So that's the part about product building. I think there's a second part, which is about, a lot of the conversations is also about data and transparency and, the impact of algorithmic kind of, benefits, right? Which I agree, we're seeing some of these examples and they're pretty sad to kind of hear. I think that's where we need fast feedback loops. We're a company that can react to feedback. The moment we have feedback, we move very, very fast. And this is just beyond complying with like data laws and regulations in every country. That we do, right? But if we actually have feedback from civil society, if we have feedback from, educational institutes, or like the healthcare industry to say that this is what we're seeing in terms of, confirmed biases, this is an area where you can act very quickly. And so I would encourage us to have a stronger dialogue with Google, give us a seat at the table. I mean, I'd love to put you all on a speed dial next time we're building a product to quickly check on like some of these things, because I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. So this is very, very exciting for me to be in this moment. But yeah, I think about this a little bit more optimistically, and I think we can actually come together and solve for India in a much, much better and a scalable way.
Thank you. That's very assuring. And on that very positive note, we have 15 minutes. So we would like panelists to go through, 13 minutes, to go through another round where I'm going to just ask, because of lack of time, one concrete change, right? Or a suggestion, policy level, design level, or governance level, that would prevent preemptive exclusion or reduce these hidden harms costs if implemented, say in the next 2 years. We are looking at a DPI model for a village, to make a village smart instead of a city. So yeah, one round please. Start with Ram. Yeah, okay. Ram, go ahead please.
Fresh off my last talk. Yeah, I think I'll keep the same theme in terms of feedback loops. The one change I would say is, can we have stronger feedback loops and stronger connection? Because, every parts of this, like, big, huge elephant, right? We all can touch only a few sides of it and not realize it's even an elephant. So what we really need to make sure is, we get, very rich, insightful conversations about where we are seeing these challenges, and not necessarily the solutions, just the problem statements. And sometimes I feel like those problem statements are very hard to even, identify and distill. So I would request, all the, the panelists here and, other civil society orgs to, reach out to us, give us that feedback, and make sure that we're able to build that bridge. That would be my main takeaway for today. Yeah.
It's hard to give only one, but let me say for governments, let's start having multi-stakeholder tables so we can set what is our minimum acceptable risk, right? Because as Dr. Bhavani Rao said, there are not going to be systems that are absolutely neutral, but we as a country, as a society, we're entitled to say, okay, this is what we accept or not, right? What's the minimum risk or minimum assessment that you as a company, before launching your system, you need to do? Because I don't think it's acceptable to harm and then say, oh, sorry, I will then fix it. Because there are already hundreds of people that were harmed. This is first one. So no more launching, and especially in developing countries where we don't have the regulations, so companies just launch and then test with us. And for that, multi-stakeholderism process, participatory process, key. And second, if our civil society here, let's work together closely, more closely. Because yes, indeed, Google organizes sessions. Open Loop from Meta does this as well. I participate sometimes when we can discuss how technology, now new functionalities that are going to launch. But sometimes, and those are the privileged ones that have the contact with. So how do we do to involve more people there, right? So sometimes it's super hard to have the thousand of CSOs there. But if we work closer together as communities, we can bring the voices of more people to the table. So I think let's connect more. I would say those two, Arpita.
Mine will be connecting to the part of the question before I didn't answer, which is what can we do about this black box? So the way in which we're doing, in the daytime, I lead a Paris-based startup that does frontier AI safety evaluation. So we're trying to break into the black box to understand its behavioral dynamics. And so we develop behavior elicitation technologies. There is a movement happening from Bletchley Park to here, which is the establishment of what we call AI safety institutes. And they are organizations led by the public, non-regulatory, trying to advance the science of understanding the behavioral dynamics and the related risks of the system, started in the UK and spreading around the world. Obviously, India is into that conversation, and Métis is into that conversation. My wish 1 year from now is that what is right now a very fledgling endeavor at the India AI Safety Institute becomes something much stronger and indeed multi-stakeholder and indeed baked into the power dynamics and the economics of building products, because indeed you're hearing it, the industry is willing to engage, and I think is willing to engage from a position of honesty into understanding the risk and say, okay, now they're feeling the competitive pressure. Okay, and that's why we need regulation, in my opinion. But India is a specific case. I'm happy with the SGI that has come out last week. We can discuss, but that's why I won't put it my first. My urgency is capacity building on AI Safety Institute to bring Science Serai, what they're doing in IIT Chennai is amazing. We need academia to come to the rescue of governments to establish a pathway, a strength in the science of evaluation, testing, evaluation, verification, validation of these deep black boxes, of the machine learning algorithms, be it large language models, be it vision models. And we need to move what I need you to understand is very important. The evaluation of AI is still today, despite OpenAI clocking 50 billion US dollars in revenue and Anthropic AI clocking 15 billion revenue, like as we speak, is still an unsolved scientific challenge. Unsolved. And so without that, it's going to be difficult to ensure that the values, that this bias mitigation or bias redressal or bias directioning that we want per society is going to happen, because we simply don't understand. And so building a local base of AI Safety Institute, networking it with the Global South, not in a way which is anti-North, but baked into a global endeavor that UNESCO has been mediating, is to me the urgency of the day. And I'm not seeing today the capacity that I wish is available, because we're talking immense scientific challenge unsolved.
I would come back to the hand that's holding the gun and not the gun. And I would come back to ethics. And Paula said a very important thing is that you could have systems in place, but who's actually enforcing ethics? In a small community where it's like a village, which is the context that you set, it's usually the community that does the enforcement, that does the monitoring, that has the oversight. So it is, I think, very critical for us to really empower communities at the base on what these ethics are and how they can be responsible. And then all the words like participatory and all these things get pulled in. But really the accountability for ethics and the human element of it is critical. If we do not know what values are, how are we going to know? Are we going to say that once we train AI and we have oversight over AI and then AI will do the perfect thing? No, but we still need humans to know what it is. So at first we have to, and it's always going to come back to this. Ultimately, humans have to become ethical people. And this is where I would still, it is the source. And that's where I would put my focus on. And the other focus is that I would say that industries have to stop being extractive. No matter how inclusive industry says that they are, how much of inclusion that they, at the end of the day, if their agenda is extractive, it's not going to save the story. And I think also large institutions are still made of human beings. So value-based, ethics-based human orientation is probably the root solution that I would recommend.
End of matter, I guess. No more AI. It's as simple as that. That's what you said, and I totally, I totally agree that human in the loop has to be brought in, right? Yeah, but why do we need to have to brought in for something that we want to create? In any case, is not trustable. So I actually made a doodle of the virtues of AI. You know, everything is virtue, no? In human being, you know, everybody will say that, okay, this guy is, you know, good or, you know, ethical and all that. And virtues are, you also use the word bias so many times. So many people will. So bias, inequality, data mining, algorithmic manipulation, prejudice, exclusion, hallucination, environmental degradation, discrimination, fabrication, profiling are the virtues of AI. But everybody thinks that AI can change the world. AI, यहाँ भीड़ भी इतनी ज़्यादा इसीलिए है. You know, everybody thinking that AI can really can make a difference. And why not is because everybody's human intelligence is saying AI is more intelligent than me. And are creating a system which we are going to say is full of bias, discrimination, exclusion and everything, and better be an infrastructure for the future. And who is pushing it? If you see who is pushing it, it's not God, right? Humans are being pushed by God or a creator, but this AI is being pushed by what she said is mostly now the corporates and the government. Mostly, if you see. And the corporate means profit making. That means your motive is to make profit. Out of whose data? Your data and my data. It's very simple. So I just want to get to the root of the thing is that this requires 1 million ethics for developing 1 microsecond of, you know, AI or something. So much ethics is required. So much if you want efficiency, if you want everything. And if you want them to become a infrastructure, then it is really God saves us what will happen. So basically we are creating something that will keep on fighting in the future. You know, that's the root of the discussion. But just get into the, you know, I just want to put 1 minute into saying that let's come to the real brick and mortar day-to-day issue which we are talking. This is a technology which is claiming that it wants to solve a human problem or a human efficiency problem or something like that, right? And more often than not, Ram talked about feedback. You know, why don't we do feed forward rather than feedback? You know, feed forward means you already know what you are developing and you know enough that how you are developing, rather than when you develop and push and then you say, tell us, did it harm you or did it not harm you? So in that manner, you know, it is very important that anything that we are building, first look at exclusion as a primary, you know, outcome. We always say inclusion, digital inclusion, human inclusion, everything is inclusion and sounds very good. And if you see as inclusion, yesterday we had 5 people using internet, today 10 people, then tomorrow 100, the graph is always up. So it's very positive inclusion. At DEF, the way we calculate is that anything that you create, first you calculate how many people are left behind for not using this and what is their life. That's exactly what we are saying. And I'm just saying, it's not negative, it's a positive way of thinking, is that whatever you are building, first thing, how many people cannot use it? Whether it's a broadband, whether it's an internet, whether it's a digital infrastructure, whether it's an antenna, whether it's a broad road, whether it's a toll road, whatever, how many people cannot use it? And if you see that number, it will always be larger than the number that people are going to use. And the people who are going to use is always will be progressive and not day one. It will always be progressive. And that is all I want to say in this one, is that digital public infrastructure, when we are talking about, we must talk that once we make it as a and I'm also saying it is not progressive because you are making it necessary, because you are making policy. For example, coming here is a QR code. QR code is a digital. Digital means it requires device, right? So there are so many infrastructure requires to do that, rather than just human being. I'm already an infrastructure, I'm already a face, I have already have different face, I have already have a unique face, I have already have a unique voice, and we still need a technology which can be deciphered. So it's very interesting that we must see that anything that we are developing, is it excluding or not excluding? On the basis of that, if you make it a public infrastructure, it will always be positive. That's all that we are saying. That's all we are saying. And public infrastructure means it's not individual public infrastructure. It's a public infrastructure. That means things for the masses, not masses for some things. You wanted to getting excited.
Just one thing. Please go ahead. We are out of time. The next session organizers will request us to move on. But please, Ram,
Yeah,
go
I'll
ahead.
sorry, I'm more
Go
of
ahead.
a case study example guy. I wanted to give you one more interesting example. So we've rolled out this technology called SynthID because your comment about feed forward, it triggered me to say this. SynthID is a watermarking technology to figure out whether it's AI slop or not. And the way we built it was, of course, the technology was rolled out, but the way it came to life was to actually work with Jagran and really make sure that the Indian newspaper community and the media community can actually give us feedback on like the applicable usage of Indian, media, right? And we learned so much from that, and that also improved our global models. So I think sometimes, yeah, it's okay to put the technology out, but we also need that kind of engagement to make it real as well and make it very local and contextual. So I'm excited about that, excited about the opportunity, but over to you.
Thank you so much. We have the launch. Please, can you please hold the reports, panelists, and take a picture? And we have mementos for the panelists. And thank you so much, audience, for patiently sitting through the entire session. Thank you. Yes.
Anywhere we have to stand.
Thank you. But can you wait? I'll give the mementos. Thank you. Over to next session organizers.